everybody, and welcome back to another episode of It's Related.
I
promise! You may not know this, but we have been on a little bit of a production break.
Yes.
The reason you may not know this is because the episodes are still rolling, but we haven't actually sat on this couch for, I think, 2 months. June and July.
I feel special.
Yes.
You're very special.
Yes. And we are joined here today by the beautiful, elegant, absolutely gorgeous and eloquent Sarah. Sarah is she has her own podcast, Nile Reflections podcast. Please introduce yourself to our beautiful audience and welcome to IRIP.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. Hey, I am Sarah Chan, manager of African Scouting for the Toronto Raptors.
Hey.
Thank you.
I don't know why that excites you so much.
I
Because
know,
I wanted to
it's
be a basketball
exciting.
player.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Oh man,
Yeah.
don't worry. We'll speak about this after. Yeah, and the host of the Now Reflection podcast, which is actually part of the reason I think we all connected. Because I think we all are passionate about the same things.
Yeah.
and yeah, so thank you for having me. It's really incredible to be here. It's an honor.
Yay! Welcome, Sarah. And I'm your lead for this episode. My name is Jules. You can find me on my Instagram at Jules_her. That's Jules with an S, JULES_her, HER. Hey, the African in me. Jules her.
See you, Mike.
My friends. Because people call me, they're like, Jules. No, it's Jules. And to my far right,
My name is Sharon Mashira, aka Shazo. And I am 1/3 of It's Related, I Promise. And I'm so excited to have this conversation with Sarah, because I'm so sorry I interrupted you earlier. But like growing up, I really, really, really wanted to be a basketball player. And Sarah are you still?
A scout.
Yeah, you're a
Well,
scout, but you were
former.
a professional. Yeah,
Yes,
former
former.
pro basketball player. And so I have such incredible respect for you
Thank you.
and for your craft and your work. So I'm just so glad to have you sitting here with us
The
today.
feeling is mutual.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
and you can find Sharon at It's Official. The official?
Official Sharon Bashira.
Official Sharon Mashira. All right, guys, let's get into this conversation. This topic is a conversation that's very, very close to my heart.
Yeah.
It's a conversation that we have been meaning to have on It's Related, I Promise, since inception in 2019 is when we started.
Yeah.
But we just couldn't figure out how to have this conversation, how to address it, because it's a very loaded topic with layers and layers and layers of history and a lot of the stuff that we might not even have awareness of. And that is to do with colorism.
Yeah.
I used to be part of another podcast called Over 25 before, when they used to be called YouTube channels, not podcasts. But I was part of Over 25, and it was something that we wanted to discuss. But I remember just saying, I can't discuss it on this platform because all my co-hosts were light-skinned women or fairer-skinned women. And I felt like I wanted to have it with people, with women who have experienced what it feels like to move around the world as a dark-skinned woman and plus size. And, there's so many things. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I think it's very important for us to give that disclaimer that we don't have the answers to everything. Neither are we representing an in-depth conversation around colorism, because as you can see, we have not all the shades of the African melanin skin are represented on this couch. These are just conversations based off of our own personal experiences, and it's a very sensitive topic. So what we are really encouraging you guys who are watching this episode is to give your feedback in the comment section, wherever you're watching this from or hearing this from, whether it's your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. And before we begin, as we always do, we always start our conversations with what caught your attention. So I hope you're prepped. I'm ready.
Yes.
Well.
Yes. This is a segment that we do on every episode just to kind of gauge where your head is at. Before we start our conversation, it's good to know
Who are we?
I know.
Well, in fact, when we know what caught your
find out
attention,
very soon.
first, therefore, we understand who is Sarah. Who is this Sarah? Because you're our guest, Sarah. What caught your attention?
Two things, but I think for today's purpose, I'll go with this video. I don't know if you guys know the video of, like, it's basically a social experiment, a survey and they put like black kids and white kids and like just different like kids from different races in front of like dolls and like different, and they point out which one is the good kid, which one is the bad kid, why, which kid do you want and which kid don't you want. And black kids are actually pointing at like the darkest kid to be the bad kid, and like the white kid to be the good kid and to be the successful kid and to be all of this other things. And I remember watching this, I think, a couple of years ago, but again, came across it yesterday. And I just remember thinking, wow, how damaged we can get just because of what social media or media in general and even pop culture and all of these things feed into us. Right. So that's what caught my attention. And it made me think about just where I come from, my upbringing, and just like my whole life, basically, because I'm the kid they're talking about is bad.
Right.
I'm going to make it
No.
Why your palette?
Yes. Yeah, the dolls that were lined up and they were told to pick
Yeah.
which is the good kid.
Which is the bad kid.
Yes, I
So,
saw that. It was
yeah.
quite sad. And it's actually made me remember something. But no, let me not get into it because I'll steal the limelight. I want... Are you done with your... What's caught your
Yes, I
attention?
am. Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you, Sharon? What's
For
caught
me,
your attention?
it's just happened right now, and it's Bear. For our audiences, Bear is our behind the scenes.
He's behind the camera
He's
right
behind the
now.
camera. I feel like you should just come here. We mulika your face.
He's Bare Necessities on Instagram.
Bare Necessities on Instagram. We love him, but he just said some disrespectful things here to us. He's our resident Gen Z.
What?
And he really had the audacity to ask Julia if movies in the 90s were in black and white.
Guys,
But
Mimi.
I'm holding myself back.
Yeah.
He also said an old school artist is Usher.
The old songs, you remind me of...
You know,
not Usher, but Confessions Usher.
Confessions Usher. He was
Confessions
so
Usher.
specific.
Confessions
I said,
Usher
Bear,
just came out the other day.
Bear, you will be kicked out.
And
Like,
I told him how my dad had we were like, we were talking about vintage cars. And then I was like, my dad had a Peugeot 45 and first a 504, then a 45. And he was like, oh, those days, they were those cars. I was like, what do you mean those days?
Right.
Anyway, he's at the back, he's laughing.
He's just
We love you, Bear.
laughing.
But you Gen Z, Kwani, you think he thought the 90s is black and white.
camera.
Even the fashion that the Gen Z are wearing
it's
now
90s.
is
fashion.
90s
He's literally, he
fashion.
looks like he came
And that's
from
when
the
I was a
90s.
baby.
I think
In the
after he
90s,
talked
I
so
was not even
badly.
5 years old. But you know how? Do you remember the set of Living Color?
Yeah. Different strokes. That
Right.
era
No,
as
Different
well.
Strokes Baby is like from the 60s.
Oh, is it older?
No, from the 70s, yeah.
I thought Different Strokes. Oh.
Different Strokes is
Now
the
I'm
black
confused.
comedy.
Yeah.
No, that's old. I'm talking about Living Color with like Queen
No,
Latifah.
I remember that.
Oh,
but
Different Strokes was Queen Latifah. I mean,
No.
sorry, Living Color was Queen
Queen
Latifah.
Latifah.
Yes,
Different
yes,
Strokes
yes.
was that old show. That
the one that he
was
thinks
old.
we were in.
But she's
Yeah.
not in black and white.
Yeah. So anyway, the 90s was colorful just for the Gen
Hey,
Zs.
Bear has shocked us, guys. Like, we've literally sat here like, wow.
Yeah.
And it's funny, we were just saying how it's so cyclical. Like, we very recently were millennials were the cool people. We were the ones, that the generation before us were talking about. Like, when you hear what we say about Gen Z, we were being referred to in the same way, like, oh, we're rebellious, we're what. So it's interesting to see how things are very cyclical. So, Bear, thank you for reminding us.
15 years ago only, eh?
Yeah.
Wow.
And in the same way that we are no longer the cool kids.
Yeah,
You
Even you,
also-
very soon.
Gen Alpha
they'll
will come
be saying,
and
all you people, nyinyi ma Gen Z
They'll
na
say
ma Gen Y.
reject.
And then you go, please. I don't know. I think I'm just personally affected because I want to be a Gen Z.
the 90s were black and white.
I think I'm shocked that I am the auntie.
I think we
I
are.
think I'm genuinely
We
like,
are.
how did I get here?
We are.
Right.
I don't know. Even you'll be surprised.
Don't blink.
One day you'll be Uncle Bear. You'll be
That's
so
what
shocked.
All right,
Yeah, that's what
guys.
got my attention.
Let me get to what's caught my attention. Just yesterday, I was listening to this podcast. It's a BBC podcast called Lives Less Ordinary. It's one of my favorite podcasts. I love a good narration or narrative podcast. And coincidentally, the story that was on there was about a young man called Salva Dut, who is actually South Sudanese. his name is Salvador, and he was just basically talking about, coincidentally, like I knew we were having this conversation with you today, but it just so happened this is what played next on my podcast. And I don't believe in coincidences, by the way. I call it synchronicity. I think it happens the way it's supposed to happen. So I was listening to his very, 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 very traumatic story of how, you know, the war in Sudan affected him, how he had to walk to Ethiopia, and then they were chased and had to come down to Kenya, and then he was taken to the US, and he was separated from his family when his village was attacked. There's a way that he ran in the opposite direction and he couldn't run back. So he's alone with a group of people at 11 years old. And he went to the US, came back to South Sudan when he was in his late 20s, almost a 30-year-old man. And now he's relocated back to South Sudan. He's doing amazing work there, building wells. His main issue is water.
I've seen a bit of
because he had somebody by another set of coincidental circumstances. He discovered that his father is alive. It was one of those things where this doctor was treating another person in another country, and he remembered that person's last name, and it happened to be another cousin who was living in Zimbabwe, and then got in contact with him in the US. It was, and then that's how he found out his dad is alive. And his dad was suffering from a waterborne disease, and that's why he decided to do something with water, because in these places where people are running away to, because people who suffer the most during war, it's not the people who are fighting, it's the civilians. I mean, look at what's happening in Palestine. But what caught my attention for me is the idea of this thing of coming back home, and how no matter where you go, it just hit me as I was listening. East or west home is always best. Right. And it hit home for me because that's the feeling I got when I was abroad. All I wanted was to go abroad and live abroad and never come back. And then when you're there, you're like, man, I just want to go back home. Right. And it's also related to a lot of the stuff I've been reading right now in the wake of Reject the Finance Bill and what has been happening in Kenya. And it's about Ruto, but it's 99% of it is connected to the West and how their tentacles and their claws are dug deep in Africa. Yet they're giving us, they give us so many restrictions to go and work and live abroad,
even to travel,
even for tourism. Even like you the other day,
my visa was rejected.
Visa was rejected, which was so bizarre, given that you've lived and worked abroad for years. And it's like these people are in this country sucking and sapping all these minerals, taking all the benefits and profits back to their countries, but then us, we can't go. You understand? And it just hit me like, the day that Africans come together as all of us and realize that the power is really in our unity,
right.
Taking these demonstrations that happened in Kenya as an example, that is when the West will really be shaking in their boots. Because if we say we are stopping all these wars, it's not because we love to, Africans, we are so dumb, we just want to kill each other. There's somebody from the West supplying. Kwani those guns, do we make guns in this country? No, we don't. I mean, in this continent, they supply us with with arms so we can fight each other, so that they can take advantage of that conflict and extract as much as they can. 100%. Once we cut those taps off and we say we are doing things here internally, things will change. That's what caught my attention. Wow. Guys, East or West home is best. Let us try and educate ourselves on the power we have as Africans on this continent. Read on those leaders who were killed because of standing up against the West, and those who were almost killed, but they were able to talk about it. Those things are there. Find out, empower yourselves, and let us empower the African continent.
That's so profound. Come on. It really got me very emotional.
Yeah.
I was holding myself. Oh, they tell you I'm 6'2". I'm too gangster to cry.
You're supposed to be gangster, girl.
Let me stop furthering this stereotype of masculine black women.
Yeah.
No, but genuinely, the story from South Sudan, it's one of millions of stories, and it's just so sad because you go again into history and you speak about our leaders. The John Garings of Africa, the Thomas Sankaras, and the Patrice Lumumbas, and
Yes,
the lack
Patrice
of
Lumumba was.
knowledge.
Yes.
The lack of knowledge, or even the lack of like sometimes seeking after that knowledge to educate yourself. Honestly, when I delved into who we are, the descendants of African kings and queens, and our heritage and our culture, and our just the richness of the diversity on the continent, is why if you invite me without a thought, I'll be here.
Mm-hmm.
Like the little girls and boys that grew up with self-esteem issues like I did.
Yeah.
The having to pass the baton on to the next person.
Mm-hmm.
I feel this a bit of a disconnect right now. And when you
Yeah.
speak of if we knew who we were
Mm.
and who we are, we would not be acting how we act.
It's because we don't know. And they had to block that knowledge
Yes.
by forcing us to change religion,
Right. Stripping us of our names.
our names,
His-
our religion,
Yes.
Practices.
and mostly our religion. This thing of Christianity or Islam or whatever you want to call it, you know, it was brought. We already had our own thing going on.
African
Once that was
spirituality.
taken away, the generations after that, they have no link. So of course you forget your power, who you are. And you think the cool thing is the Converse, the Mercedes Benz, the things that are not African.
That
Yet
is
if you look at the
distracting
West
you.
and everyone is like, okay, now let's go green. Let's go. Look at how we used to live as Africans.
was
Even
green.
the pots
Right.
and pans we used to use were
And
made
in
from
harmony.
earth. They were in harmony with nature.
Right.
When an African community leaves one place and goes to the next, you're not going to find plastic and whatever that's going to be there for millennia or forever and ever. We were already living in a what they call eco-friendly way, and now we are seeing the aluminium is going to give us dementia. Sijui, the non-stick is going to give us whatever.
Microwave will give you
Everything, and now we must eat things from the earth. All these domas and ngwashi
We've
and
been
yams.
doing that.
What do you think? So we have it here,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
because the way the world is set up, it's like we are forced to adopt a Western way
there's
of
someone
living
that's
so
always
that we are able to
benefiting.
survive.
Right. And there's always someone benefiting.
Yeah, because of the structure that
Right,
we.
right.
Yeah. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about. I want to talk about what caught my attention based on that because it's kind of linked to the
Very.
history of
Yeah.
colorism.
That's powerful.
Of course, Sarah, I'd like you to be able to tell us who you are, where you grew up. I know you've even been speaking Swahili before we started. I was looking at her like Allah. In fact, there's something I must say about that. And before we go into that, Sharon has a video for us to watch that can kind of kick off this
The
conversation. There's a lot of you who gave us some feedback on our recent question sticker on Instagram. We had asked our followers to give their experiences, or rather their privileges that they have experienced as a dark-skinned woman, or privileges you've experienced as a light-skinned woman. We'll also be getting into that, so stay tuned.
Yeah.
It's an honor to actually have this platform to speak because my story is ordinary, like every other South Sudanese, every other African that has probably gone through some hardships. Only different and grew up in the Civil War in Sudan. The country is basically predominantly us that look like me and the Arab race, right? And there was the issue of religious differences, the Muslims and the Christians. I grew up in a two-parent pastor type of home in Sudan. So went to school that was, a Muslim school and got expelled because of my religious beliefs. I didn't want to read the Quran. Me and my younger sister, just basically, I'm an 11-year-old at the time. I didn't know any different. I remember just like always dreading the walk to school. Every day you knew you would be subjected to abuse on the road. We were often referred to as slaves. Basically, for lack of better word, like defecation. Everything that was associated with like just black and negative. So I really grew up with negative ideologies about the color of my skin. Of course, as a kid growing up, it affects your self-esteem. We came to Kenya. Everybody was almost kind of like us, but still there was different shades.
Mm-hmm.
And
I have a question a little bit about the South
Yeah.
Sudanese experience.
Sudan.
At that time, it was
Sudan at the
Sudan.
time,
About the Sudan. So, but within the darker skinned, because I know I have a friend. I have a friend from Khartoum, which is north.
Yeah.
I guess he's Arab, Sudanese,
Yeah.
and then I have friends from South Sudan. So, were you living in the northern part of
Northern part.
Because you're talking
So
about
I'm
having
from
to
the
read
south.
having to read the Quran.
So
the
that's
Quran.
Khartoum, the capital city.
Okay,
Right?
and that area is predominantly Arab.
Yes, and honestly, even to just take a pause right now and divert everybody's attention to what's happening in Sudan, because war is a real thing and every life is affected. I went home in November. Sorry to digress.
It's okay.
okay.
Talk about that.
To my village. So my village is right at the border, northeastern part of Sudan, and that's where all the refugees and the returnees are coming back into the country for safety. Right?
From the north.
From the north, because the situation is dire. Just the living standards are just absurd, guys. So in whichever way you can help, advocate, create awareness, like, please do it, because it's starting to die down and it's not trending at all, and people are dying, and there's children affected, the malnourished kids and elderly that are dying, and just like they've gone through like unspeakable traumas. So if it's prayers to whatever you can do, think about Sudan. It's
Are
not
there
just
some resources you can share with us? We can live in the.
So let's connect
We'll
on that, and
add,
then
yeah.
we'll
leave them in the show notes.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. So you came to Kenya.
Yes, so came to Kenya, age of 12, 98. As our Gen Z had to point out
Yeah.
earlier. Back in the day when the pictures were black and white, but so it was a bit different on this side of the continent. The only thing that led us here is our parents' relentless pursuit of their dreams, which is education.
Yeah.
We come from a very small village. And education is the only difference between why I'm sitting here right now and my cousin who's still probably where we left them. But they let us just be. And I think that's just the beauty of now I can wear shorts and I can play basketball. Oh my gosh, and no one is looking at me like, hey, whose son is that?
Yeah.
And no one is judging you. But then also the walks to school, because we lived on this other side of Karen End. Sorry. Sitadanganya bana ni Karide. Karide on this other side. And I remember just walking to school in the morning, but you always heard names from Sudi to Blackie. In fact, Kiwi was trending then, eh? Kiwi,
the shoe shine.
yeah. And they used to refer to us as Kiwi as
Oh, my
well.
days.
I don't know. Look, sometimes it was kids. When it was the older people, it was kind of scary,
Yeah,
right? Because kids will be kids. Like, you
Yeah.
cannot really. To my younger sister being Chapwad, because Ebu Angalia. Oh, Blackie, kuja. And it's just like, and that one was like just teenagers, right? Again, teenagers will be teenagers. It is what it is. But from an early age, let me just say, we knew that life was not going to be easy. And yeah, that set precedent for
Okay.
everything else that followed.
All right.
Yeah.
So that explains why you speak
Swahili,
Swahili, and she was telling us how she went to eat meat in Nairobi West. I'm like, Allah. So you've grown up in Kenya,
Yeah.
Sudi, and I think you've mentioned something about Toronto. So
Yes. So I work.
Have
for
you lived in
Toronto,
Australia?
right? No.
Okay.
Visited only. But I
Visited.
lived in the U.S. I went to school in the U.S. I did my
Okay.
undergrad 4-year program, basketball scholarship
In the
type of
US.
thing. Yeah.
Okay. So you've been to a little
Snippets
different
in
places.
Europe as well.
All right,
as a
I'm really excited
basketball.
to get into this conversation.
Thank
actually,
you.
so because you're the right person for this for
100%.
this conversation. Even this is Sudi a derogatory term?
Msudi. It
Msudi.
shouldn't be, but it's always
What does it mean?
the connotation.
Sudanese.
South
Msudi.
Sudanese
Oh,
too,
okay.
Msudi. But then it's
Msudi.
always like I highlight it, and it's funny. I'll say this. I think Kenya or Kenyans have an incredible sense of humor. Ndio ukisikia Kenya hatuhami. Like, there is such a rich, like, and also a welcoming, like, nature here.
Okay.
As much as this, all of this, you can tell who is saying it from what place, right? Because we've been subjected to different types of, not just from race, but like to colorism. But you also know when there's a humor in it. And someone is calling you maybe garang to, because garang was really respected and all of that. And then also tumsudi, or like to kiwi and giza and usiku. And you're like, hey, I mean, you like lapped out on you, but nike smile. You might. However, ni lazima uniambi.
Oh, that's uncomfortable for me.
Me.
Yeah, okay.
You see, but we really do appreciate like the humor of Kenyans.
So context.
Generally. So not all was bad, but not all was good either. And it's even worse when it's coming from like an adult to a kid.
Yeah.
It's like speaking down to you, and it really affects you in different ways.
But there was no that kind of issue. Was there that kind of issue within the darker skinned South Sudanese?
So you see, because we were all having one like issue, which was identity in the North, it wasn't so much so. Now, I don't know what to speak to, because I have, let me just say, I have not experienced it to that depth. It's more of like tribalism or like all of that, other than, but a lot of us are actually bleaching, right? And that goes to show you the extent of which it's really affected us, like the body image, self-image type of thing.
All right, we'll talk about that. I actually have a few comments about that.
Yeah.
Sharon, take us away.
Yeah. So as we were just sort of doing research for this topic, I came across this incredible video that was done by BuzzFeed. And basically they brought together a bunch of different people from across the world. And it's titled "What Dark-Skinned People Will Never Tell You." So I just want us to watch. It's quite a long video. We'll put the full video in the show notes, but we'll show you a bit of a snippet. And it's called "What Dark-Skinned People Will Never Tell You" by BuzzFeed. Okay.
It's something that I don't usually talk about because I'm afraid that I'm making people uncomfortable. It's something that affects me in almost every aspect of life.
There's something about having dark skin on a woman's body that shapes the way she moves through the world. There's something about having darker skin on a male body that shapes the way in which he moves through the world. It has real life stakes.
From what I've seen growing up, dark skin equates to being poor, dirty,
ratchet.
They tend to be the bad guys in Tyler Perry movies.
Straight from the border.
That doesn't even make any sense. I'm not deemed as beautiful, therefore I am not beautiful. And those two are not really mutually exclusive.
Could it be that something as early as colonization or slavery is primarily responsible for our beauty standards today? We're talking about who works in the field and who works in the house. We're also talking about rape, the rape of slaves to produce people who are known as mulattoes or mixed race. These standards of beauty travel. Eurocentric standards of beauty travel.
In the Dominican society and our culture, they have a phrase that's like mejorando la raza, advancing the Dominican population and making sure we're going into how they say the better. If you're lighter, you're bettering the race and you're bettering the island versus if you're just being you.
I would get called the blackness. One joke that really stuck with me was like, oh, Edgar's so black that when he leaves a car, the check engine light turns on. That was a reference to my skin being as dark as oil. I felt ugly being of a darker skin tone. So I tried to gel my hair, or I started listening to skater punk music. So I tried culturally to lighten myself, if that makes sense.
I went on a trip to Korea with my mom. Some woman walked up to my mom and she asked, "Why is your daughter so dark?" In Korea, you have to be pale, and I almost felt like a foreigner and not so much Korean anymore.
When we turn off the lights, they say, "Oh, Coloursim, where did you go?" Or, "Oh, you're really pretty for a dark-skinned girl." Are you saying that my race and just the fact that I am black, is that not attractive in general?
I remembered one time that I wanted to be an angel in a parade. At that time, they were like kind of...
Yeah, I think for me what stood out with watching that film was just how colorism is this cross-cultural, global thing that happens, and of course we're speaking from a very Kenyan context. But I just it was very interesting to watch that and see people from different parts of the world and how it shows up for them. And so I was just curious, like, what you thought and felt watching that video.
I guess that's why we're here. It's relatable, I promise. From the jokes that I mentioned earlier about leaving the room, and just the knowing earlier in life that this is not about to be easy. And leave alone, like, some of those ones are light skinned compared to me. And not to dismiss or say anything about anybody's struggle, but walking as well in this skin tone. Like, everywhere that you went, you were the darkest. And people sure did, like, show you in different ways how they felt about it. As sensitive as this topic is, look, I really understand why people actually bleach.
I'm
Totally, yeah.
I'm so glad you said that, because like I wanted us to, like, if we localize it, and maybe Jules, you can share your experience being dark skinned in Kenya. What that has been like for you?
I mean, that's a very broad question.
Yeah, because we've been
can
trying to do
write a
this
book.
topic for years, guys.
So, okay, for me, I would say the first time I realized, so dark is not the aspiration. Is when I remember at maybe 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old. So that would be like from class 1 to class 3. There was an ad for Fair and Lovely.
I remember that one.
That would run over and over again. It would always start with this girl. She's so sad. She can't get this job. Or this girl, she can't get this boy to call her back. Or this girl, she's not being called for the movie by the rest of her friends. And then her mom or her auntie brings her this little toothpaste tube looking cream, and she applies on her face, and then it says, in just 2 weeks. And then they give you a progression picture of how she went from how she was to how she is today. And now she's happy and she's smiling and she got the job.
And
And
got the
she's throwing her
boy.
papers outside of the office. And the friends are calling her and the boyfriend is coming to pick her up to go out on a date.
Right.
And then you look at yourself in the mirror, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah, that's not
I need
me.
Fair and Lovely.
Yeah.
I'm 6 years old. Right? And at that point, I didn't even know about, like, I didn't know that dark skin is a range. And let me tell you why I'm saying this. Is because in Kenya, I've been having a struggle. In fact, with Sharon and not only you, other people. People assume that dark skin is
Myself.
But being dark skin is a range. Also being light skin is a range. Being fair skin is a range. That's why some of the people in that video, you have somebody who clearly looks like an Ethiopian or from Ethiopian descent. You have a Korean. So you're trying to say they're light skin.
Yeah.
She's probably lighter than you, but she's not calling herself light skin. She's talking about herself.
Dark
So
skin,
this thing of dark skin is a conversation that I wish we could have, but we're not having it in the way where we are now putting a chart and saying you're dark, you're darkish, you're darkest, you're black, you're white, or fair skin. I wish there was a way to talk about it without having to almost do the paperback test. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
And I remember now in that same era, I had a friend. Her name was Christine. I'd completely forgotten this. I just remembered when you started talking about your experience in school. She was South Sudanese. And she was my really good friend in lower primary, like class 1 to 3. And I remember thinking, she was very dark South Sudanese, very pretty. She always had her lines neatly done to the back. Like, I think she used to do her hair every week, honestly. She was very tidy. That's what I remember. That's what I remember about Christine. Bright white smile. And I would ask myself, I used to imagine when I'd look at, when you're kids, you ask, how many beauty spots do you have? How many da-da-da-da? So I remember I had like one beauty spot here and one on my leg. And I remember thinking, I bet Christine has no beauty spots because her beauty spots are the color. I mean, her skin tone is the color of my beauty spots. This is me as a like 6-year-old. And one day I asked her, Christine, do you have beauty spots? She said, yeah. And she had so many.
It's so funny. I've been asked that too.
Right? And then when I looked at her beauty spots, I'm like, oh my God, there's a blacker than her.
Yeah.
That's the beauty spot. Yes. And I was not being colorist.
it was just,
I was just genuinely curious.
Right. Like,
you know,
it gets darker.
And so growing up for me, lighter was always better, but it never affected me until I would say we got to uni. Yes, I knew I was darker, but I didn't think. I mean, there was lighter girls who were the pretty ones in school. Those are the ones that were doing pretty. So the thing is, pretty was synonymous to being light skinned.
Right.
There's those few girls like this chick. I don't know why the boys loved her. She was, I think it was her confidence.
Yeah.
So she was one of the like the cool kids, but she was the only dark skinned girl. But she was like the top of the food chain. What I'm trying to say is anyway. So in primary school, I didn't really feel the color like, oh, you don't like me because I'm dark. No, that happened to me even in high school because I had attention from boys in high school. I didn't even realize all the guys I used to talk to were light skinned until a friend told me, hey, Julia, you always date cute boys. Again, cute boys were light skinned. And then I went to uni. And when I went to uni, before everyone knows I was in USIU, but prior to USIU, I was actually in Daystar for 2 months. I said, I ain't gonna continue in this school. The school is too far out. You know, going to school, you're just seeing zebras. It was too far. Anyway, Daystar is a story for another day, but I was in Deo. I remember when I went to Deo, I was like, this school has no like hot boys. And hot boys were like my ex.
Yeah.
No, not. Actually, it could have been the light skin. It's just that the ex I had, he was a light skin rugby player. He was like the nini of hotness. So in this school, a lot of the boys were giving.
It's our film crew laughing in the back. Why are you laughing so much? She's really holding herself.
Yeah. So when so I guess I'm ashamed to. I am having a realization right now. I think I was actually looking for the light. I don't know what the fuck I was looking for, but I remember going to. I'm like, hey, there are no hot guys in this school. But then
you had been conditioned and you didn't.
I was conditioned. Yes, but then there was this one guy who I thought was so handsome. His name was Tony. I used to call him Tony Almeida because you remember 24, the show? There was Tony Almeida. And his ringtone was the one for 24, the show. You guys remember? It was not in black and white.
Don't ask. Do you
know the show 24 with, what was his name? John?
Bauer?
Jack Bauer. So remember Jack Bauer's sidekick was Tony Almeida. Anyway, this guy was Tony and his ringtone was the 24 theme song. So I used to call him Almeida and he was a very tall, buff guy and...
Imagine him watching this now.
Oh, he is watching it.
God, I think he's married. Yeah, you know, Jesus is God. So like, I just thought he was so like. I started like now. He was always attractive, but like now he was. It's like when you keep seeing the same thing every day, and I'm like, oh my God, that guy is hot. That guy is hot. So it's like my nini shifted. I remember my type shifting from. Well, I don't want to say I had a type. It was until my friend, her name was Jennifer, she told me, Julia, you know, you always date pretty boys. And I said, do I? Then I remembered, oh yeah, there was that guy. And then there was this other guy. You know, in high school, your relationships last for 2 months. And I had my What Would Jesus Do band, so we never did anything. How far was too far was kissing. Oh my God, you know. And so, long story short, I remember that shift happening. And then I went to USIU and... I don't know why USIU had now a lot of mixed race people. I don't know if it's the rich kids, they're mixed. I don't know. But
I think it's because it's so international.
Yeah, there's also a lot of white people. So I remember just thinking, like, no, I like my Almeidas, the Tony Almeidas. But that is when now I started to get rejected because a lot of the dark-skinned men that I was attracted to, I would see them reject me for light-skinned girls. And one particular guy told me, man, Jules, you're dope, but like you're not my type. And I didn't know what that meant until I saw the babe. Now he started dating, and after the babes he would date after. And then I had another incident much later after uni. I'm already in my Akina Bear's age, and this guy.
There, you're a running
I was
theme
in
in
my
this episode.
20s.
You're a running theme.
I was in my 20s. I was about 25. And I remember I was dating this guy, and his friend was my friend from those days of uni. And we were all having a drink, and he said to me, "Hey, I'm shocked you're dating. Let's call him
Chocolate.
no idiot." What can we what's like a name of a villain? I need a bad name.
Ruto. Not Ruto. Okay.
Not Ruto. Anyway, so his name was Kevo or Brayo. So I was dating Brayo, and then now
Akebo and Brian Nairobi PA.
hata mimi.
The flags were there.
So now
life.
see my life. And now his boy came to told me, "Hey, Maze, I so you're dating Brayo?" And I said, yeah. Hey, okay. Then after a few drinks, he's like, "No, but you're not. Brayo has never dated a babe like you." So I said, "What do you mean? Like a clever babe?" A babe, because I had a mouth on me, you know what I mean? And I was whatever. So I was like, "What do you mean, like a girl like me?" I said, "No, you know him. You're not his type. He usually goes for yellows. And in that group is when I became so self-aware about my skin tone. And we had such a long conversation with not Brayo, but his friend who was my friend. Like I started talking to him about this type thing. I'm like, "What do you mean?" Like, and it was more like, he was like, no, you're not his usual type. He normally goes for like skin girls. And he said, kind of like the girls I date.
Wow.
Right? And this is
Like
this is a guy who I'm still
mindset.
friends with to date. And for me, I was like, okay, let's talk about that. So you have a type. Your type is light skin. And I asked him, I was already very confident in my skin tone. At that time, no one could tell me anything. But I remember I told him, so let's say you date a light skin girl because it's your type. Right? It's your type. I don't really believe in that type of when it comes to skin tone. I think it's something that you learn. And I said, because it's your type, it's your preference, although I think it's learned. What happens when you marry this woman and she gives you a child and it's a girl and the girl comes out looking like you? How will you instill confidence in this dark skin girl?
Right.
And if you have a type that's only light and you cannot date a dark, isn't that saying something about how you see yourself when you look at yourself in the mirror?
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
Because you're not finding it attractive. If you have a type, let it be kind, okay, yes. Nice smile, whatever, but specific down to skin tone, and it has to be on the fairer side. You need to unfuck your brain. I'm sorry, you need to figure that out. So anyway, that was my general experience with colorism, and it's something I'm still so aware up until today. When something happens, and by the way, that guy, that Brayo, he cheated on me with a mixed race Ugandan babe, and I remember thinking, wow, my boy was right.
Yeah, he literally
after
said,
I've gone for him for like half an hour, we're having a debate. So what will you tell your daughter? And he's like, sawa, madam, whoever you think you are. A few months later,
it happened.
It happened, and it's like, what the fuck? But yeah, so I've had that thing where even another guy dated. It's actually a guy I talked about on my podcast. So This Is Love, and he told me, you're not my type, but you're different. And I stayed because I guess this is the type the guys I'm attracted to. This is what they like, but maybe I'm different. You know what I mean? But now I'm so like
sensitive.
I'm aware. I'm aware of it because I have had to learn to love myself. And I feel like men, as much as in this video it talked about men, that guy saying the dark men get passed over or maybe typecast as the villains, I tend to feel black dark men have it easier than dark skinned women, because we have learned to find dark men attractive. When you look at Kofi Siriboy, you look at Idris Elba,
Damson Idris.
These are dark
But
skinned,
also
and
even like the commercials kind of like have tune.
Thank you.
It's
You always
a
find
black,
a black man with a mixed race woman and a racially ambiguous child. All the billboards in Kenya with all their... In fact, Nivea is the brand. I remember the first time we saw a dark-skinned woman blown up on a billboard. Nivea.
And it was such a
I was
like
so happy.
It was so unconventional.
It was so unconventional. And I'm like, thank you, because 99% of us on this continent, okay, not 99, but many of us look
more like
more
like
dark.
that.
But why is it that you have the dark skinned man and then you have the light skinned
racially
wife?
ambiguous, babe.
You don't know, and then the kids are all brownish in the middle. But then the boy kids are dark like my dad.
Exactly, but
you know,
the female kids.
Yeah, and just to show you, it's not a preference. It's not I prefer a light skin. It's something learned. So we have that on one end, and then on another spectrum, you go to a country like Congo where you have men bleaching. Yeah. In Kenya, you will never find a dark man bleaching. In fact, my brother is very dark skinned, and his boys are also dark skinned, and they used to make jokes with each other. Theirs is now it's not offensive. It's like you black guy, you know. But you've never seen. I can never imagine Derek coming to tell me, hey, where can I get fair and lovely or whatever. You know what I mean? But girls,
or even like being offered. Like, I've been offered cream.
Oh, you have? Have you ever? Let's talk about bleaching. Have you guys ever bleached?
Never.
Neither have
I have family members that have actually been affected by it, and they are doing it. I have lots of friends that
bleach.
Yeah.
Have you ever bleached?
More often than not.
No, I've never bleached, but I have considered it, especially during that time of the dating part, where in fact, I used to have a relative who used to be like, you just put a bit, you brighten up a bit, then you stop. And I'm like, you stop and then you go back to, like, I was so scared of the extreme reaction because we did know people who, after you bleach and then you get the hyperpigmentation. Yeah. So I have never bleached, but there's a time in my 20s I genuinely thought about it. In fact, I even remember it was just after I finished campus and I was working in town in the CBD, and I was to work with a team of girls from Coke, and one of them had her face. She used to have acne, but then she started using a bleaching cream, which actually took care of the acne. Oh, really? Yes. So I wasn't there long enough to see how she transitioned to being light skin. So I remember asking, "Oh my God, what are you using?" Because I also had acne prone skin or acne, and I was like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "Hey, there's this cream. I'll take you." But when she showed me what it was, and I saw it had hydroquinine, and already there was the articles of hydroquinine and mercury. I remember reading an article at home about that. So I told her, "You don't know this thing is bad for you." She's like, it's working. So that was my fear. Actually, to answer your question, Sharon, I've just remembered there was a huge expose those days of when it was only KTN and KBC, and then there was a whole thing for bleaching creams. And there's an article either my mom or my dad made me read, and I remember memorizing that hydroquinine and mercury. So anytime I used to go
look at products,
I used to look for hydro whatever. The reason I'm saying this is because I had very problematic skin from the time I was 11 years old. I broke out. So I was already using like toners and face washes and stuff. And so I haven't bleached, but I did think about it.
Yeah, like seriously, like it was
No, I mean, I was like, maybe I should do it. I see her look. Okay. I look prettier, but I've never been able to pursue it to go through with it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. No one else has something to say about
that?
Well,
I do.
Sharon, you asked me if I've bleached as if you wanted to say something.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking if...
Sharon, is this your original color?
Is it?
Is it?
I was just thinking just on the piece about being desirable and light-skinned women being more desirable, and why I've never felt like I needed to bleach. And I think, I don't know, because when we had this conversation the first time, and I said to you, which I'm just going to share because
it's too late now.
It's too late now. Yeah. This is what we do at the podcast. We bring all our things here. And I was saying to Josie, but I don't, identify as dark skin. And she was like, will you? How dare wow, what the, And
I was
taken aback.
It took me back to that guy telling me you're not his type. I felt rejected by somebody who I thought is my. It's like you coming to tell me you don't identify.
Me, I don't. Excuse me. I don't identify.
And anyway, never mind. But that's you.
In what I was saying, like it was not. I wasn't trying to be offensive, or like I was literally just like, I definitely wanted to have this conversation. I just didn't. I just felt like that's I don't know what to say about being dark skinned, because in the context of what I was understanding about being dark skinned was perhaps more what you've shared, where as a kid you were told when you blackie, when you this or that, Giza. Like that's where I was coming from, because I was like, I haven't had that experience of being discriminated against because I'm like dark skinned, except obviously when I was in the UK, which for me was my first experience or understanding that my skin is
different.
Yeah, and dark and black and therefore negative, right? Like that was the first time, because before that I don't think I had understood or experienced colorism. But for me, it was under the shade of racism, which is the same. You know what I mean?
Is in colorism.
Yeah, but it wasn't like before I went abroad. I had never been discriminated against because I was, let's say, too dark.
Yeah, so it's not something that was in your awareness.
It wasn't. For me, it was maybe being skinny, being thin. Like that's I felt like that's more my like quote unquote struggle.
Yeah.
But
not your skin tone.
Not my skin tone.
Let me just clarify something about colorism and racism. Racism is whites against darks, blacks, right? Colorism exists within the black community.
Correct.
You understand? Yeah. So for me, example, somebody saying, I won't date you because you're not my type, because you're dark. Yeah. But I'll fuck you. I'll have sex with you because because for me it was just like we can hook up, but I won't take you home, kind of thing.
Claim you.
Yeah, claim you. And let me tell you something that's so crazy. So for first of all, I don't know where colorism lies in relation to the colorism in Kenya in relation to the colorism in Africa. In America,
in the States,
in the US, where their tapestry is very interwoven with slavery and the field nigger and the house nigger and then for us, I don't know how that played out during colonization.
It's just colonialism.
It's
always the light, like the wanting to be as
close to whiteness.
Yeah. You know what I've always wanted
the privileges and the advantages.
And the advantages. And what I would like to know. You know how there are some tribes, and I would love if the audience could also give us some feedback if you guys have anything to say about this. There are some tribes that, I'm Kikuyu. There are Kikuyus who are what they call Muranga Brown. Muranga Brown is a term in Kenya that is for the light-skinned, fair-skinned Kikuyus, the pretty Kikuyus. And I'm from Muranga. Okay? All my Kikuyus, there's that Muranga Brown that I have seen. I know many of them, right? But I always wonder if that Muranga Brown is the real Muranga Brown. Because when I look at my people, my family, we don't really have that light streak. And the one that we do on my mom's side, I remember asking my mom, how comes Uncle so-and-so is so light-skinned and everyone else is like us? And she said, I don't know. And then one day she said, I thought about what you asked me. And I've remembered my grandfather was very light-skinned. He even had like a different color, like blue eyes or something. Turns out, there was something that happened there. Yes.
Oh, snap.
And he was like the village drunk, my mom's grandma. I need to just double check this story, but I remember her telling me this when I was really young.
So there could have been some interracial.
Yes. So sometimes I wonder, they say these Kikuyu girls or these Kamba girls, whatever you want to say, was this our original skin tone, or was there some interference, especially because the whites settled in
those regions,
the Bantu regions to do commercial farming. Yeah, I don't know.
That's a very interesting.
Did you have any experiences, negative or positive experiences, in regards to your skin tone, first in Kenya, and then now leaving the continent to go and study in the US?
Yeah. I think it's just the human nature of the negatives always kind of like overshadow the positives. But I've always, especially on the continent, right? Weirdly enough, like in Nigeria, and Nigeria is also affected by like a lot of people bleaching. Kenya, it's incredible. Like half of the time, people are asking if you're either a model, really complimenting. Even one person in this room today was like, "Oh my god, I love your skin." And
if you modeled before, is it offensive? Like,
it's not. Not at all. Not to me anyway. I'm a basketball player, and I kind of almost find it funny sometimes. I'm like, Mimi, but I give them respect. I think it's an incredibly tedious job. I have a lot of my cousins, and my sister did it before. But I know there's a lot of work that goes into it. I'm too goofy to walk around with people's clothes, and then I ruin them because I just cannot contain myself. But yeah, I've had a lot of compliments from here, from West African, especially Nigeria. I mean, Senegal, I fit in like home.
Yeah.
Oh, so
Yeah.
Senegalese, are they as
they're
dark as
me.
like South Sudan? Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
we're
okay.
cousins. We usually, joke about it's like two brothers got mad at each other. One went this way,
You
the
went
other
this
one
way,
that way.
yeah.
Oh,
One
yeah,
said, let me follow the
Now you
Nile.
speak French? Oh, I'm still in English. Oh, but yeah. So my experience, my lived experiences as a woman of this shade, from let me even start. Leave alone from Kenya, from Sudan at the time, from the name calling us slaves and being subjected to some really nasty stuff. Like people would actually, in public means, would move away or sometimes hold their breath like you're an actual animal. And I remember just like clinging to mom's like attire because sometimes there was no place to sit and you're standing up, to come to Kenya. And Kenya, to be honest, has been, I don't even know where to place it, but being a child and being called Blackie or Giza and all of this stuff. And when you don't know your identity, it plays a really huge role in getting to know who you are or getting to see yourself how the world sees you compared to how
You see yourself.
right. Because at home I
Yes.
had like my dad always affirmed that I was beautiful.
Mm.
Right. And it's one of the things that has gone a long way for me. But still you step out and you quickly realize that you don't fit in anywhere. You don't belong. And I'm sure a lot of, South Sudanese, Junubin have felt this. And then going to the US, and thank God in the Karinde side that we lived, it was in a school, by the way, Nairobi Evangelical Graduate School of Theology back then, now African International University. And we lived amongst a diverse group. So as kids, you saw some lecturers, but also even in that, most of the lecturers were Caucasian. Then there's like the, refugees that are fleeing from Congo. There's the us, there's the Rwanda, there's all these other people that have come on some sort of scholarship. There was still like some sort of class, some sort of hierarchy as well. As much as there were Caucasian students, it was not as much. So there was a bit to take away from there as well, from like where we were in the chain. And then going to the US on a scholarship, I went to a predominantly white school. The international students were mainly the ones on scholarship, us again, playing sports. And I think, and I was in the South, like in the deep South, Jackson, Tennessee, right? At the time, I was dating a Croatian boy. And I remember also the, almost like a divide between how that side felt about you being with this guy, how this other side felt about you being with this guy, but also them feeling like you're not one of them, if that makes sense. Like you're African,
Mm-hmm.
you're black, but you're African black.
You're not African American
Yeah,
black. Mhm.
and you're dating
Oh,
this
so by the
white
two
boy. So
sides,
there's
you
the
mean-
two sides, like
you mean the whites and the
white and
African Americans?
Yeah, and so it's just like a whole dynamic. So like my entire college life was also one of, okay, here we go again. I don't fit in, but Nikwapa for basketball, so we're gonna do what we need to do. So it was a consistent learning and like affirming myself. And one of the most beautiful things, and I share this always because I'm so proud of it and it will carry me through the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I say my parents prepared us for the road and not the road for us. Before I left Kenya, and thank God for Kenya, I say this because the confidence, other than my dad, just being in Nairobi, like, lazima tu ukae rada. So my dad sat me down and he's like, my daughter, you're beautiful just the way that you are. And I'm telling this to every other young girl, every other young boy, and anybody that's struggling with self-image and all of this stuff. He said, my daughter, you're beautiful just the way that you are. Don't ever change anything about you. And if anybody has a problem with that, that says more about them than you. Go and represent us. You're ambassador to our family. You're also an ambassador to Africa. And that has never left my heart, my mind, and it carries me through and has carried me through even like being spat on, like, and all of these crazy things that the world try to throw at me. I was like, okay, throw more, let's see, right? And from there, I went to Europe. I played a bit, then also experienced that whole, racism thing, come back to the continent, in different parts of the continent. Of course, you're still experiencing it. Every now and then you'll still experience it.
I think now this is now for the South Sudanese, and for me, what am I trying to say?
Yeah, take your time.
I think some of the cures or solutions to these prejudices that we face in humanity is to expose yourself to those people that you have these prejudices against.
Right.
Because sitting here with you, you are so goofy, so like funny, and I had a thought when I was upstairs just like doing my makeup quickly before coming back down, and I was like, it's crazy. I didn't know. I know this is so stupid, but just please,
We're always
I'm
so
learning.
serious,
I am
eh?
unlearning. I was like, I didn't know South Sudanese people can be like quirky and funny.
Yeah,
Like you're always very serious, and you're working with a mission, and it's like sometimes you just hang around with yourselves.
And it's a
Although I
mechanism.
do have some South Sudanese friends in Kenya, in Nairobi, who I
No,
love.
Nairobi has really
Nairobi,
melted down.
yes. But for me, it's like when you see South Sudanese, you see struggle and I'm sorry, refugee, survival,
and,
and I'm like, oh
yeah.
my God, she's normal. I'm so sorry to say this, but
No,
like
I know what you
that
mean.
I know you're normal. I know you're normal. But to me, I'm like, there's no like that. You're just like a regular person who is goofy and corny and self-conscious and funny and witty. And I'm like, wow, you know what I mean? So I can imagine if I am a man who's like, I can't do this, babe. Maybe she's too dark. But like, maybe just get to know her. Like,
Maybe
for me, maybe she's the answer to your loneliness and your pain. Guys, I really want us to talk to tap into some of the responses we got from the question sticker that we posted.
Yeah.
And this is now in reference to colorism in Kenya. I know we've kind of been all over the place. We talked about the different experiences, especially because we have a guest who's a bit of a global citizen. But let me just take it back to Kenya. I don't want us to take too much time in reacting, but this is just basically what y'all said about colorism in Kenya. I'm going to read just 1, 2, 3, or 4 of them. And then I have one more thing I want to end the episode with. This is an experience that somebody wrote in, one of our audience members. Her experience as a light-skinned woman in Kenya and some of the privilege that she admits she has benefited from. All right.
Okay.
So somebody here says in high school. So the question we asked was, what are some of the privileges that you've experienced as a light-skinned or dark-skinned person?
Yeah.
In high school, a certain teacher would only choose light-skinned girls and those who had long hair to answer questions. I was chosen to be in our Mashairi high school group. Mashairi is what? Poems.
Poetry.
Poetry. Mashairi high school group. He only wanted light chicks. This is the teacher. In jobs, employers tend to hire light-skinned and pretty. You'd think in this day and age, merit is more important. I think that's something that actually happens in Kenya,
Especially in media.
First of all, in media. There's somebody we really wanted to sit on this couch.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it later. There's somebody in media who is supposed to be a co-host, a co-guest with you. Where we would media where they would pick light-skinned women only to be the presenters. Me hii kitu inani affect sana. So when I see Yvonne Okwara on TV with her poise and her confidence, Yvonne, me, I just love you. Yvonne, which camera? Yvonne, you're the bomb. Bomb.com. Thank you for representing us dark-skinned women in such a beautiful way. But like, let me just say something about media. First, in marketing, it's something that happens.
Yeah.
I know Maureen Bandari spoke about this on her page some time back. In agency, they would actually typecast and say, for brand ambassadors, we're only looking for light skin size 8 or 10.
Between 8 and 12.
Yes, 8 at a 12 imezidi. 12 is coming towards my side. Light skin. And it was normal. It's like you have to pick those because that's what they think men will want to buy. Is desirable. And it's something that happens hadi wa leo. And now when it comes to TV and media, there's like an era there in Kenya. I was like, please, don't take us back to the dark ages.
Right.
I feel like black skin melanin girls were having a moment. We were having a moment around the time Sauti Sol
Oh yeah, I did the song
dropped
Melanie.
melanin. That era, and then the hashtag melanin popping. We were having a moment. Dark skin girls were having a moment, and I loved to see it. And I honestly think it was spearheaded by the Gen Z. I'm gonna give you flowers. I shout out to Gen Zs for that.
There's so many Gen Zs in the room
I
today.
know, right?
For that, and also for allowing women
Different sizes.
different sizes, wearing crop
Sizes.
tops.
Yeah,
The last our era, you had to be like this.
Remember the beads? We used to have the beads.
Yo. So when I see Gen Z, thank you for that. When it comes to also in film, they you know how they would always pick light skin leading ladies.
100%.
And then when I felt like black women were having a moment in American black films. Now you would see them casting leading, like now when Viola Davis. I was like, thank you, Shonda Rhimes. And then now you come here to Kenya, and I was starting to see the same light skinned girls doing the leading roles in Kenyan films. I was like, please, guys,
Catch up.
Not catch up. Don't take us back. Don't take us
catch
backwards.
up with America.
Yeah.
No,
With the Viola Davis?
just be in the time we are now. Don't fall back. Don't take us back to the days where we are starting to see only the light skinned girls are the pretty ones.
leading roles.
And so when Mombi,
straight hair, and
yes,
big booty.
yes, or like Mwarabu, whatever. No, yes, those people are also beautiful. But even us, we are
Right.
beautiful. Beautiful can be many
Representation is
things.
all.
Beautiful can be
Yeah.
many things.
Yeah.
And so the film that Ruben did, where it was Mumbi Maina, Kate actress, Mumbi Maina, and the three of them. There was these three girls, and the leading lady, Mumbi Maina, is a dark skinned woman. Carvey, I was like, that's what needs to be happening. When you look at another movie called this show in Netflix, Queen, Country Queen.
Yeah, Melissa
Kiplagat. I was
yeah.
like, thank you, leading lady, dark skin,
She's
plus size
stunning.
ish.
She's so beautiful.
And also, anyway, so I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah.
In media, I was feeling like there's a era there where it was like the same leading lady, and I just wanna, please, guys, we're not doing that. We refuse. We have to be well represented. Light skin is also okay. I'm not saying it's bad, but like, for the dark skinned girls who are watching these movies, they need to see themselves represented.
When I was working in media at Media Max K24, there was a senior media person, the person who casts, like who hires the talent. And what she was saying is that they specifically cast for a powerful man who is over 45 years old. And so that's why they needed people who appeal to that personality. And I was like, that is the most... I get it, but that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever had in my life. But I understand.
Right.
And I was like, that
But
makes
also,
so much
why-
sense why you
is
see
it
what
the
you
conventional?
see. So I was just really questioning that logic because, like, as much as I understand it, I was like, why are we okay with that? Why are we playing into that? But yeah, I definitely see it in media, and I think women that are light skinned definitely have an easier time being front facing, getting on camera roles, on air roles. Like you don't have to do as much as someone who is dark skinned, in my opinion. Like I've seen that
No, I
in
concur.
the 10 years I've worked in media.
Yeah.
As soon as you're conventionally pretty, maybe yes, you need to have some technical skills, perhaps some journalistic abilities,
Right.
but it's like 80% of the job, at least in the Kenyan context, is looking a certain part, and
Right.
75% of that is being light skinned.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a lady, I don't remember which interview I was watching, basically on the same topic, and she's Kenyan. Actress, she's, a bit on the chubbier side, and she's dark and always wears her natural hair, and she's gorgeous. And she was just speaking on exactly what you're saying. Like, she went for a role. They told her that she couldn't, she doesn't fit the description, which is light skin was the first one, and she was just like, I thought like my acting skills, if it was that, I would have gone to work on it, but now it's this. And then they try to look for like a different role to fit her in as a daughter of somebody, and later on the director came and like insisted that she couldn't just be on, and she overheard them speaking, and it was because of her skin
Her
and then
skin,
her size. And she just said it made me have to like take steps back and go back into jobs that require my knowledge and not my looks.
And not
And
your
that
looks,
is so unfair,
Yeah.
because who gets to set that?
All right. A little bit more feedback from our audience. This is one or two more from the light skin girls. somebody said, this is not a privilege, but everyone assumes that you're a bitch, sadly. I'm not going to read that last part, but she said, everyone assumes you're a bitch. This is when you're light-skinned. I didn't know that. Another light-skinned girl says, attention, I get a lot of it. Another one says, a lot of guys interested. And then now we go to a few comments from the dark-skinned privilege. We didn't ask for what challenges do you have as a dark-skinned woman. We asked what privileges. And this is what the dark-skinned girls said. None. Light-skinned women don't see you as a threat around their man. None, LOL. This can't exist, can it?
Yeah.
Dark black women are the most underprivileged group. Never felt like there is much privilege, honestly. Is privilege really a thing?
What is a privilege?
What is a privilege? And it goes on and on and on and on.
Someone said, "Auntie, light-skinned women don't see."
They don't see you as a
threatened
threat.
around their man.
It's true. No, I babe.
They know like the conditioning.
And the shock on them when their man gives you attention, you can see their brain is like error. They can't believe it. They can't believe it. Guy, I think it. Can I just say something? Fuck, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I hope, please don't use this as a cutaway. I beg you. I feel like our editor is going to use this as a snippet. But you know what? This has just reminded me something. I remember there was one time this guy was dating a friend of mine, and she was light-skinned, conventionally beautiful, and they broke up. This was years ago. Oh my gosh. They broke up, and then out of nowhere, this guy just started howling at me. And I remember feeling like it's a flex. That because once she found out me and this guy were having, we didn't even date, but we were just talking, she could not handle it. It's like she came running back to that guy. This is a dark-skinned guy, very tall, dark-skinned guy. And she came back and he said, I have not gotten this much attention from this babe until you came into my life. Like I was the threat. But me, my flex was not that. My flex was that, mimi nikika hivi. You mean I can shake a light-skinned pretty girl. I remember feeling, it was a moment of pride for me. What a shame. What a fucking shame. But it was a moment of pride.
I can't.
It was a moment of pride.
Shake a light-skinned pretty
It shouldn't have been a moment.
girl.
Yeah, she couldn't believe it.
Why?
You know? Because hakuna cream ya kukua dark. Why? Why? Are we not good enough for creams to be made for us?
No, but people tan. They go to those
They go to the tanning booth. Yeah, but black people tan to become
But
darker.
what I hear now,
Black people are running away from the sun and layering SPF 500 because they are scared of to get a tan. You go Mombasa, you should see the black Kenyans running away from the sun. Why?
Listen, no. Do you know people are injecting themselves with melanin?
What
And
do
it makes
you
you question
mean?
where's the melanin coming from. But story for another day. But people like fair people are also kind of injecting themselves with melanin, and it's
That's
I know.
mad.
Look into it.
That's
But also,
crazy.
yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
You mean white people or?
yeah. But also
Because
like people
fair,
that
the mixed race, those ones have it the best.
Mm.
Because
No,
the
no,
white
it's like
people find them
the-
beautiful,
the
the black
other
people find them
spectrum,
beautiful.
yes.
You know, the
It's
one who
like the
says,
best of
I
both
wanna
worlds.
date you because
exactly.
you're gonna give me pretty babies. You know that idea of pretty babies?
It's like, what is
Bruh.
I
that?
was told this in Egypt. You and me can make a caramel baby. I'm like, I'm guessing I'm your coffee.
You know which part you the thing is though, I get it. But the point I really want to drive home,
Yeah.
that it's not about preference, it's learned.
Right.
Yeah, it's
It
conditioned.
really is.
100%.
It really is.
Yeah.
You can one time you'll be like this. Like for me, can I tell you something? I had a friend who had dated a South Sudanese man, and this was the love of her life. And she said something to me that stuck with me and became my truth. And people think it's my truth. It's actually her truth. So I have to give her flowers. She was,
What truth?
yes, she was actually a very single, conventionally pretty. And let me tell you, she used that shit to her advantage. So props to her. She would always get men with money, and she was very beautiful. And her ex was a South Sudanese guy who really broke her heart. Eish. Character development. As in, how did she even went to that year Sudan, by the way? She went there. And then I imagine. And then, so one day we were driving, and then we saw a big, like a range. Those days in Kenya, and there was like 2 Range Rovers in the whole country.
Yeah.
And she was like,
That time
she was like,
existed.
that's a Range Rover with double
SSD.
SSD plates. I know all the Range Rovers in this country. Who's driving that car? And then we saw it was a Sudanese guy walked out. And so she used to love South Sudanese because of her ex, the women and the men. And she would say, I find them so beautiful, so majestic. And I had never thought of South Sudanese as beautiful and majestic. I just thought, these guys are in the struggle, man. You know. So I had never, I'm sorry, but I had never associated beauty with South Sudanese unless you're on the runway. Unless you're in New York Fashion Week. You know.
You're either basketballer,
but not pretty,
but it wasn't
not
always
beautiful
like that.
until this chick said that to me. And then it's like
something tuned.
Suddenly switched in me. And now everywhere when I look at, I even talk about it on my page. When I see South Sudanese people, I just feel like, and I said this to somebody, like I repeated her words years later, like I find them so beautiful, majestic. Those are not my words, they were hers, but they became my truth. And that this person told me, I think they were cultural enthusiasts, and they said, Julia, probably South Sudanese people were like the kings and queens and royalty of Africa, like 3,000, 4,000 years ago. I think it's the irony of life. The fact that you were tall, when you look at Avatar, the film. Remember, people were 2 feet tall and they were...
Even the color, like the
blue. Navy blue. Yeah, so I just thought I should mention that.
Avatar is very cute.
You know, I see
it. Senegal, if you think we're majestic and beautiful.
I'd love to go to Senegal.
I worry I wouldn't come back.
Because
Issa Rae is Senegalese. Is she not?
What?
Issa Rae.
What?
Do you know Issa Rae? Issa Rae? Actor from...
of course.
I think she's Senegalese.
Is she Senegalese? Oh, interesting.
No, Senegalese is so beautiful. Like just...
Akon is from Senegal as well.
No, but if you see their women, like even just how they walk, they come to, you know...
When
they're doing any of those things, Tosi.
Yes.
You're just like, okay.
Peacocks,
Guys, we have to wrap up this conversation. I really, really want to urge everyone in the audience who's watching this episode to give your 2 cents on colorism in Kenya, or if you've lived abroad, what have your experiences been? This conversation can be tackled from so many directions. I feel like we've done it. I don't even know if we've concluded anything.
At least we got it started.
We've got it started.
We've been trying to start it.
The intention for me is to spark a conversation around colorism in Kenya and to drive the point home that colorism is something that is learned. It's not a preference. The way that guy told me, you're just not my preference. And I'm like, cool. Educate yourself. So when you get a daughter, utamwambia nini, especially when she'll see mom, it looks like this, and then she goes out and experiences that colorism. Then she comes back to the house. You as her father are the first person this girl needs to hear. You're so beautiful, mommy, from you. But if you don't even believe it for your own self, how can you believe it for your daughter? You get what I mean? Guys, especially men who have daughters and nieces, repeat that thing. You are so beautiful, mommy. You give them that confidence. Tell them to tell themselves that they are beautiful. It'll take them far. When it comes from the men in their lives, it does something. And I want to finalize this episode with a letter or an experience that a light-skinned woman shared. And I thought it would be very important to read it, because I don't want it to look like we're sitting here saying, whoa, dark-skinned women. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Representation.
So allow me to read it. It's a bit long, but I think it's important. Colorism. And this is from a light-skinned woman born and raised in Kenya. She worked a little bit in media, double here and here. So she has experienced what Sharon has talked about, being picked to be in front of the camera because of her skin tone. First of all, I always felt weird growing up because my whole family is darker than me. As a way of wanting to belong, I craved darker skin. Truth be told, that wish to be darker came back with a new name, exotic, later in my life. Remember this point, I'll expound on it. As a teenager, I quickly realized the value of being brown. Pretty would often be substituted for mweupe, yellow, and later rangi ya thao. This was a major ego boost at that age, and it informed me how I moved in the world. I was confident and always knew that if nothing else, I was pretty, which was actually just light-skinned. Later in my adult life, I saw how bosses gave me more attention because of my complexion. The same tropes of my youth were here, but this time with financial consequences. Would I have gotten the job if I wasn't lighter skinned? Not as easily, I don't think. I'm sad to admit that I saw really talented women get overlooked for similar positions to me, and I can only guess it's because they were darker, although this was never explicit. It was only after I started dating that I began to see the fetishization for what it was. Guys would say their type is light-skinned, which also meant different personality and behavioral traits. I wasn't the thing they were describing, and how nonsensical to even draw such correlations. I wanted to be me, not the light-skinned Madagodhanio fantasies people were projecting onto me. Remember that exotic babe I wanted to be? I wanted to be her so bad when I left Africa. Suddenly, I was somewhere where being light-skinned didn't count for shit. I was either white or adut akech dark to get any attention from the men, black men included. So suddenly, this childhood urge to fit in came back, and this time with a layer of self-loathing because I wanted to be chosen for being exotic, for being darker, and because being darker was in vogue. In more disconcerting, I'm more discerning now about my own attitude towards my skin complexion and how much of that is internalized from society. At the end of the day, I'm realizing that hate of self and other is what keeps these narratives going. But I am now awakened enough to understand that these narratives can and do shape people's lives, their prospects for job, love, and well-being, just as they did me.
Wow.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how we will wrap this conversation on colorism. If you've made it this far into the conversation, thank you for staying on board. Please give this video a thumbs up. I would like you to please tell the audience where they can find you or your podcast, and remember to mention the name.
Thank you. This has been incredible. So you can find me on Instagram at Miss_Sarah Chan, Sarah with an H, Chan like Jackie Chan's last name. Then my podcast at Nile the River, Nile Reflection Podcast. And you can find me on, the podcast on Spotify, Apple, YouTube podcast, not channel. But yeah, so everything is at Nile Reflection Podcast, and everything else is at Miss_Sarah Chan.
Yeah.
All right.
And also, I think it would be important to mention that we would absolutely love to have this conversation again. Like, as Julia said, we know we've not touched on so many other bits, so many other different voices. Like, we just wanted to get the conversation started. So even in the comments, just share what your experiences have been. How else would you see us having this conversation? Who would you want to have? I really want us to have over Yvonne Okwara. Yvonne, if you watch this, please come to the podcast. And just, how much further can we take this conversation? Because I think we just scratched the surface today.
We really did.
Yeah.
And I think part of, starting a dialogue and actually, spreading this narrative is going to be part of the change.
Exactly.
And I really appreciate it.
Yes. The same way that we are fighting for this ideology of acceptance of different shades is part of that fabric of African pride. Okay, so I would really, really encourage you guys to challenge what you state as your types or your preferences. Especially if they're rejecting who you are.
Exactly.
Sorry to cut you
Go
off.
ahead,
I just
go ahead.
remembered a quote by Malcolm X. Who taught you to hate yourself? Who taught you to hate yourself?
Yeah.
Who taught you to hate yourself? Know your history.
Yeah. I actually have something else to say because of that. Remember, there's this thing. It's
related, I promise.
It's related, I promise. There was this thing. There was this experiment or something, social experiment thing that was going on online. It was kids of different races. They're in front of the camera. Two kids, maybe one is black, one is white, one is Asian, one is white, another one is white, and then these kids are like maybe 6 years old, and then they ask, what do you notice about this person, this friend of yours? And they say, oh, they like spaghetti, or they never talked about the race or the color of their skin.
Wow.
But then you ask the same question to 14-year-olds, 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, it starts to shift. And now all these things that we pick up as we are growing up start to show up in the conversations. My point again is is highlighted there, that these things are learned. Darkness is beautiful, lightness is beautiful. As a human race, let's just accept who we are.
And love yourself.
And love yourself. There was no mistake when that guy did this. He said, sprinkle, sprinkle here, sprinkle, sprinkle there. Okay? It's all demure. It's all cutesy. And with that, guys, we've made it to the end of the episode. Remember to like this episode. Leave a comment if you care. Share with somebody who you think might benefit for this conversation. And as always, it's related. I promise.